My name is Martha Kohl, and I'm a historian at the Montana Historical Society. And
I'm Jodi Delaney. I am a teacher here in Helena, and I teach 4th and 5th grade Montessori at Broadwater Elementary.
so I wanted to just start by telling you a little bit about our Footlocker program, starting with how to get there. So now I have to,
We're going to share another screen.
I'm going to try to share a screen. Oh, I thought I was all set up. Here we go. I'm going to share this one, see what happens. Woo! All right. That's not what I want to share. I want to share that.
We'll look
later.
at that eventually.
We'll look at that eventually too. Do you see that?
Yes.
Okay, you see that? That's not what I want to share either. Sorry. I sat here for 10 minutes working to get this all organized, and no, that's not what I want to share either. Okay, last time's a charm. There we go. All right. So I work at the Montana Historical Society, and we have a lot of educator resources. And part of my job, my favorite part of my job, is helping to develop these. Just to be able to go find these resources, it's at mhs.mt.gov. And you always just go to Education and Events is the place that all teachers will, that's your go-to place. And then you go to Educator Resources. What we're going to talk today about are these hands-on history footlockers. So what these are is they come in big Rubbermaid containers. They're traveling trunks. You can order them for 2 weeks to your classroom. They're free except for the shipping on to the next venue, which usually costs somewhere between $30 and $50. Or unless you can find another school just right across town that wants to have it, and then you can just drive it over. But if you're shipping it from Brockton to Babb, it's going to cost a little money. So that's the one downside. The other downside is that we didn't get to do it this year because of COVID. So the upside though is, and let me just show you a list of the types of titles real fast. So it's everything from architecture to immigration to contemporary American Indians, Lewis and Clark, the Gold Rush. So you get a little sense of the World War II, kind of the range of titles that we have. Especially with our newer ones. And let me just back up and say for next year, when we really hope that we will be shipping these out and you decide you won, we're going to open the reservation. We're waiting to make sure that we can really do this to open our reservations, but that's the goal. So in August, if you decide you want to do it, you come to this page and there'll be a link to reserve, and you just type in what dates you want and your school name, and you get yourself all signed up. Especially with our newer ones, actually with all of them, all of the footlockers come with a user guide. And the user guide is just a 3-ring binder that has narratives for students, narratives for educators, and lesson plans. Most of those lesson plans you can do without actually getting the physical trunk. So I did want to show you, and if I can, it's worth getting the physical trunk because the stuff in the physical trunk is totally amazing. And I'll scroll through a little bit of that. So this is the footlocker we're going to be talking about today. But you can see some of the objects that are in this footlocker. So all sorts of replica artifacts, parfleches, books, skins, this beautiful dress.
And that's a little tiny dress,
yes.
By the way. It's so darling.
Yeah, it's for a little baby. So anyway, you can see the kind of stuff. So this hands-on stuff really makes the history come alive. So if you can actually get it, it is just way better. Boarding school outfits. But if you can't, you can still use the historical narratives and the lesson plans. And that is more or less what we're going to show you today is one of the 8 lessons that come with this footlocker.
Great. You want to scroll up really quick?
Sure.
Just here's an example. My class, when we looked at this earlier this fall, the ration coupon bag alone sparked a huge number of questions and conversations. And just that one material there really got a lot of conversation going, which is why getting the trunk is really excellent. Now, I don't always plan ahead. So sometimes I'm teaching this and I didn't plan ahead time long enough to get the trunks. But that's where it's really nice to have the online option and also have the chance to get these things and get them into children's hands. Thank you.
You're welcome. All right, so PowerPoint. Let's do this thing.
So we are going to look at one particular lesson. And there are several lessons in this. Each one is oriented around one of the essential understandings. And so there's essential understanding 1 all the way through to 7. And some of them have more than one lesson on them. So this is lesson 7, but it's not actually about number 7.
Essential understanding number 6. And I guess I should back up and say that we had, when we created this Footlocker, my colleague Deb Mitchell, actually, because we're going through all of our Footlockers, they're all 10, 15 years old, and we're updating the material, we're updating the lesson plans, we're aligning them to the new standards, we're thinking about what worked and what hasn't worked. And so we went to this lesson called, we went to a Footlocker that was, Montana's First People.
Oh, yeah.
And we looked at them and it had some great lessons, but Deb said, we teach teachers the essential understandings regarding Montana Indians all the time. Why don't we teach students that? If this is really what we want every kid to come out of 12th grade knowing, then why aren't we directly teaching them? And so we took this particular Footlocker and we reoriented it to being really explicitly aligned and designed to teach the essential understandings. So
very cool. All right. Well, this one then is looking at number 6. And so we're really trying to dig deep into the idea that history is a story and it will vary depending on whose perspective that story is being told from. And especially our friends who teach elementary, who doesn't love good stories? And so I really enjoyed being able to use these series of lessons to break down. Some of those essential understandings are very verbose and very teachery. So being able to get children to be able to understand these, I think was really powerful. And this one in particular is all about perspective and understanding different people, different perspectives, and how that then has an impact on the history and how we share that. So here we are looking at a particular event and what you call it. Do you refer to the Rosebud Battle, or do you call that event the place where the girl saved her brother? And this lesson gets to really dig deep into different perspectives. So to start out with, we are looking at the PowerPoint here. And in all of these Footlockers, the PowerPoints are available online. They already have the script in there. And I have used these when being observed by my principals in the past. And one just this fall came in while I was teaching one of these lessons and made me look really good. So, so the first one here, we are going to take some time to look at 2 images. And when I'm presenting this to students, I am not giving any information yet. I'm starting with asking questions. And for any of you who have heard of this before, I'm thinking of our art teacher friend, you may have heard of this, but it is a very powerful tool for anybody, anywhere, any age group, and that is VTS, or visual thinking strategies. We're going to do a bit of a modified version with this, but if you are at all interested, I highly recommend it. And there is a bunch of information about visual thinking strategies along with the Charlie Russell unit that should be in everybody's libraries, right?
it should be. It's also online. And I also put some links to a PowerPoint and a description that we we created that I'll give you later.
So for anybody who's a purist, this is a slightly adapted version because we are going to tell them some of the historical context later. So first image that we're going to look at here, I would say to my students, we are going to take 1 minute and we are going to look at this image and see what we can find. So we are going to be using our eyes and really looking in depth and observing. Then I would just wait for a full minute. Now we're trying to do this quickly, so I'm not going to have you wait for a full minute, but I will simply open the conversation asking the students, what do you see? And if any of you would like to answer that question, how many people do we have? Do we want to just do that in the chat?
I think we have 44. So yeah, let's do it in the chat. Maybe.
Chat is a good place for that. So what do you see in this image? Sometimes we also say, what can we find in this image? Let's see if I can see.
Can you make the chat bigger?
I probably can.
So,
whoop, nope.
Yeah, if you click on
Go here.
There we go.
There we go.
Okay.
So we see the rider hanging onto the side of the horse, a wartime event with an unfair advantage.
What do you see that makes you say that?
An indigenous man running away from an army of soldiers, many against one, guns.
Mm-hmm.
A warrior on the horse, guns being shot on one side, arrows, white aggression. Now, also in the classroom, I would invite students to come out and point. So they could say, I see guys on this side with guns. I see a warrior here. And then we would also be following up with, again, oh, acoustic. What area do you think, what makes you think that could be acoustic? And at no point am I ever answering or correcting or anything like that. I just, oh, thank you for sharing. Oh, thank you for sharing. Oh, we see a man on a horse trying to get away from a group of people with guns. We see a roach. There are 2 natives. And so we will keep going. I usually try to do about 10 to 15 minutes per image. And sometimes you get into a lull where nobody answers. And you let them sit with that for a moment and then say, well, what else can we find? Let them sit for a moment. And then usually it's the second round where you go, wow, I didn't notice. Oh, a shield. Oh, look at that. I have done this before where there were literally things I didn't see in the image until somebody else pointed them out and I went, oh, I didn't actually notice that. Oh.
All the time for me.
All the time. So on this first one, I would normally spend more time, but since we're kind of compressing things, we'll go ahead and move to our second image. Now, again, take a look at it. Observe, and what can you see in this image? What can we find? We'll give everyone a minute to look. It's also really nice to be able to zoom in and out on these. Okay, we see a battle, conflict, chaos.
I wonder if we can zoom. No, I can't.
Oh, can't on this one.
Okay.
Smoke. And in the classroom, I'd be like, Michelle, tell me why you say chaos. Men with arrows and guns, death, anger, sadness, darkness.
And do you think we could like call on a few people? If it's just 44, they could unmute themselves for a minute. So Diane, I'm curious about sorrow.
Yes, Diane, see if you can unmute. I suppose I have to make this smaller.
I just recognize the at the very bottom of the screen, like he's wishing things could be different, and his sorrow, he's looking up above, and that's just the picture that grabbed my attention first.
Fellow who is making the international sign of despair.
Yes.
Yes. Oh, thank you. Aloha, what makes you think this is a past depiction of racism today?
Well, we read all of this stuff in the history books, and even from our storytellers of our own people, of racism that, it's shown here. Where the natives had to fight to keep, their traditions and everything, so, and then now it's like we still face that, not on this level, but it's still there.
It's still there. Thank you for sharing. All right, sorry, both of us are like, what does it say?
It's the middle-aged problem. So I see both Native Americans and whites on horses in the battle, dead people.
The kids love the dead people.
Brave man. Who's the brave man?
Victoria. Give you a moment to find your.
Oh,
they're all brave. They look like brave, manly men. All right. Well,
you want me to go to the next?
Yeah. Oh, now I got to figure out how to move the chat so I can see where I'm at.
Here, you can look at where you're.
Oh, good. I can look at it over here. Okay, that's a good idea. We're figuring this out. Oh, the depth of the fight helps us see a vast number. Excellent. Thank you so much for sharing all of those. We would continue the conversation as long as it felt necessary in the classroom. I often end up with more kids wanting to share than we have time. So sometimes at the end, I'll say, all right, and I know I see you've got so many important observations. Let's do a quick turn and talk. Tell the person next to you what we didn't get a chance to share to the whole group, and give them a moment to discuss anything else that they observed. Then we will continue to move on into the PowerPoint. And I realized that since I can't see the words of the PowerPoint, I don't remember the great narrative.
There we go.
So we'll show you what it looks like here.
Now you can.
So when I'm presenting, I always rely on the narrative, which is also in the teacher's manual if you're using presentation mode or not. So then we're going to talk a little bit about the historical events that these images relate to. So the Great Sioux War took place in 1876 and 1877. The United States wanted ownership of the Black Hills, and the Sioux and Northern Cheyenne refused to give up their claims to the territory. The war had many battles. The most famous was the Battle of the Little Bighorn, where the Sioux and Northern Cheyenne defeated the 7th Cavalry, led by General George Armstrong Custer. Even though the Sioux and Northern Cheyenne won this important battle, they ultimately were forced onto reservations. And this is also nice because quite a few of my students have been to the battlefield. And so that's always a fun personal connection when they can say, oh, I've been there before. And I do encourage them to be able to share whatever they can of their own experiences. Then I'll give a little bit of background here.
Sorry. Whoops. I skipped down.
I was like, wait, we got to go back.
You're right. Sorry.
This is one of my favorite stories. I love this woman so much. It's all adults here, right? Okay, the hardest part about teaching this lesson is not using the term badass to describe this woman. So she is absolutely fantastic and the kids adore her too. 8 days before the Battle of the Little Bighorn was another battle. This one was between the forces of General George Crook and Northern Cheyenne and Lakota warriors led by Crazy Horse among the Northern Cheyenne. The battlefield became known as where the girl saved her brother. The girl was Buffalo Calf Road woman, a young mother who rode into the battlefield after soldiers shot her brother's horse. Amid a shower of arrows and bullets, she helped her brother onto her horse and carried him to safety. 39 Sioux and Northern Cheyenne warriors died in battle, and another 63 were wounded. Despite these losses, the Sioux and Northern Cheyenne believed they won the battle, and this victory helped them rally their warriors a week later to fight at Little Bighorn. The next one here, General Crook did not call the battle where the girl saved her brother. He called it the Rosebud Battle because it took place along Rosebud Creek. 10 of his men died and 21 were wounded. Crook insisted that he won the battle because at the end of the fighting, he held the field. Other US military officers later criticized Crook for not pursuing the Sioux and Cheyenne and forcing them to move away from their camp. So the question with our lesson here is then, what name should we call this battle? So these two pieces of artwork both show the same battle, either the battle or Rosebud or where the girl saved her brother. We know the one on the left was drawn by a Northern Cheyenne artist, but we don't have the artist's name. It shows Buffalo Calf Road woman rescuing her brother through a hail of bullets. Buffalo Calf Road woman wears an elk tooth dress. Her brother comes in sight, wears a war bonnet. Who do you think is the hero of this drawing? And then we would stop and discuss. I think it's Buffalo Calf Road woman. The bad guys are the soldiers shooting at her. So in this image, she is front and center. She is the hero. And you can see that the soldiers are being portrayed as the antagonists in this case. But then we look at the second one. The one on the right is called Surrounded, Desperate Charge of General Crook's Cavalry at the Battle of the Rosebud. It is an engraving created by John Karst after a drawing created by an artist named James Taylor. Both Karst and Taylor were Euro-American artists. Who do you think is the hero of this drawing? Then we would usually look at this one a minute and they could talk about it for a second. I think it's the man on the white horse. That is General George Crook. So we see him, center, white horse. He's definitely the hero figure. And surrounding him in this one, the bad guys are the Indians attacking him. These pictures are imagining scenes from the same battle, the one the US government called the battle or Rosebud Battle, and the one the Northern Cheyenne called Where the Girl Saved Her Brother. So that's our first primary set of documents that we look there. And that can be a whole lesson unto itself, depending on how much time you have, which is one of the things I like about these lessons. There's often pieces you could take and expand. Maybe that could be your art lesson. And then there's another piece that another teacher might say, oh, I am so excited to use this next part because we are going to be doing some close readings. We're going to be talking about perspective, about fact and opinion. And that is going to be really great for reading. So when you get these trunks, you don't have to feel obligated to do every single lesson and every single part of every lesson. You can really take them and adapt them to what you need and what your particular kids are in need of. So the next part here, you open up this first one, you will see that it is from the point of view of a Lakota warrior. And one of the things that was so great about this is giving the students a role. So their role is that they're a newscaster. They went out, they interviewed this person. Here are their notes, and they are going to be bringing back that information to share with the rest. Was there anybody who read this one and had anything that they wanted to share? We will at least attempt to give people a chance to share out.
I read this one.
Oh, good. Tell us, what did you identify that you want to share?
Well, I think that if you read it over, he just felt like that there was a very clear line with a treaty being done, and that they had the right to defend their land. And even though they lost lives, they succeeded because they got the enemy to retreat off their lands.
Awesome.
Very good. Thank you. And as you saw in the directions too, where you can mark out the opinion part as opposed to the statement part, that can be a really hard task for some of our younger learners. And so there's many layers to this lesson. All right. I was in this group for a wee bit. Was there anybody who read the interview with Buffalo Calf Road woman who would like to share? Go ahead and just unmute and shout it out because I can't really see from here. Maybe, maybe not.
Please.
Yeah.
All you have to do is, I interviewed Buffalo Calf Road woman. She believes. What did she believe?
What did she believe?
Our group read this one. And from what we read, she believes that the whites have an expectation that they are moved to the reservation, even though she believes that there isn't enough game on that reservation, and she's unsure of what that will mean for her tribe. And she has heard that the whites kill really anything in front of them, whether it's an elder or a child or what have you. And so she's really worried about her tribe and has heard that her chief is taking extra precautions to protect them. And so she watched a battle and saw that her brother was in danger and saved him. And in the future, she is going to do whatever she can do to protect her people, whatever she can do. And that includes fighting alongside her husband, Black Coyote.
Yes. All right. Thank you very much. We appreciate you being willing to speak. Group 3, the one that is an interview with the Cheyenne Elder. Is there anyone from that group who want to share?
Or is willing.
Or is willing? Yeah, you may not want to, but if you're willing.
So one thing that I feel like she believes, and it kind of struck me, was that her chief, Black Kettle, flew American flag over his lodge to show he wanted peace with the United States, and the soldiers still attacked, and that over 100 people, mostly women and children, were killed. So that struck me as something that could bring up some pretty good discussions.
We had a lot of conversation with this lesson, which is fantastic because they're doing the majority of the thinking and the heavy lifting work. So yes, that did bring up a lot of questions. Oh, thank you very much for sharing. And number 4.
All right. Someone with number 4, would you share?
Yes. So this was the Lakota Elder. We'll give some awkward social pressure wait time.
And this might have been a group that wasn't able to get to their document, in which case I apologize.
That also happens.
Yeah, so basically the Lakota Elder is someone who fought in Red Cloud's War, and that's the context and the treaty violation. You know, the context of his memory is the fact that the plains were rich in buffalo. The Bozeman Trail was through the last good buffalo range, and they saw how much damage whites could do even when they were just passing through. So that was, and they had a negotiated peace treaty, and then the whites broke that treaty. So that's his perspective.
All right. Thank you for, hopefully somebody found that one. We won't force you all to speak, I suppose.
All right, hopefully the people who, the next group who did C1, hopefully you were able
General
to
George
access
Crook.
your interview. So does someone want to report or is willing to report?
Yeah. Hi, my name is Sarah, and our group was reading the interview with the General George Crook, and for what he believes, he was saying that he believes that Native Americans belong on reservations in order to make the European citizens and settlers feel more safe. He had stated that he thought that farmers and ranchers were afraid to leave their homes without protection, and that because of that the Native Americans shouldn't be near them.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you for sharing.
All right. I think the next was at 4. So we're going to go to 5. No?
That was 5.
Yeah, we did
Oh,
5.
sorry, thank you. Can't count.
Yeah,
6.
we're on to whichever one is C2.
C2.
Oh, yes. The interview with a U.S. Army private.
Okay, so my name is Mackenzie, and my group, when we talked about this with his beliefs, we kind of tried to look towards at why he believed they were fighting with them Native Americans, but it didn't really mention anything, mention that. So I kind of thought of his beliefs as he thought like Indians were cowards because they didn't really stick around for the battles. They kind of used like guerrilla warfare versus actually battling on the front lines, and he didn't agree with that. So that's what I
Thank
noted.
you. Yeah, you do have to read between the lines a little bit with this fellow. He's not really emotionally invested in this. He was just born in Denmark to a poor family, and this was a way to survive. So
Right.
yeah, it is. This is a good one for kids who are a little bit more on the upper end of your reading comprehension, because they do have to do a little bit more thinking about it. Thank you. And now are we on to
We're 7.
7?
Yeah.
Interview with a minor. Excellent. Doesn't the Historical Society have Charlie's shoe?
We do have,
I
we
was-
have, we do
I
have
was-
Charlie Thomas's boot. Yeah.
I have seen Charlie's boot.
Yes, we do have it in our collection. Would someone share from this group, please?
Maybe.
Or is this another group that wasn't able
It
to
might not have been
access
able to
their?
access, yeah.
So this one is an interview with a miner who came over the Bozeman Trail, so sort of maybe encountered our Lakota warrior.
They kind of pair.
And he talks about the murder of Charlie Thomas, and who was an 8-year-old boy. And in his mind, the Indians were awful because they killed Charlie and his father, William. And he said they had no reason to kill the Thomases or attack our chain. They're savages. They don't mind killing women and children, and they love to steal, especially horses. Making treaties with the Indians won't do. They never keep their word. So that is what he believes, and what shaped his viewpoint was his experience on the Bozeman Trail. All right,
Then we
last
have
group.
our last one. I believe this is our rancher.
Yeah,
Yes.
so hopefully
Yeah,
someone.
was anyone able to read this one that would like to discuss?
Yeah, we were able to read that one. It's about this rancher. I think he came from Texas and went to Montana to raise his cattle. And he believed that natives should go back to reservations so they don't steal his cattle anymore and kill them. A question we had, I think, was like, where in Montana did he actually live?
Ah,
And he was just like out for his personal gain, I think.
Mhm. Yeah, he wants to get
yes,
rich.
money.
It's all about the money.
Yep.
Great.
All right. Well, thank you to everybody who spoke. Or I don't know, there's probably somebody out there who's like, I tried and it wouldn't unmute. In the classroom, we would have set this all up with the 8 worksheets. And that would give you an opportunity to probably at least double it, depending on how many students you have. So all of the A1s meet together, the A2s meet together, etc. After that group has had a chance to read and discuss, kind of like what we were trying to do here, then you would get together with your other partner. So for example, the 2 elders would talk together. The general and the private would talk together. The miner and the rancher would talk together. And so that way you now have groups who are somewhat similar in their opinions. Those groups could then discuss, here's the person I interviewed, here's what they said and why. Then you break apart one more time where you have A, B, C, D. So this group that you discuss with last are going to be people who largely have kind of opposing viewpoints. So you are going to find that your tribal members are probably not going to have the same opinions as some of these Euro-American folks. And so one of the things that I really appreciated about this was, because we set it up that the children were all reporters and you have interviewed this person and that is what that person said, it means that you don't have to agree with that person. So you don't have to agree with the statements from the minor. You don't have to agree with any of the things that any of these people said. You are the reporter who is sharing out honestly on just the facts, ma'am. So that gives students a chance to have conversations about perspectives, but it also lets them step back a moment so that they can have these debates and conversations without feeling like we're going to hurt somebody's feelings or offend somebody. And also because we're talking about times gone by, I think it's really valuable to talk about changes in opinions over time and changes in different policies over time. And so that I felt was one of the most powerful parts of this, was the follow-up conversations to say, Mrs. D, we have some questions about this. And do ranchers still follow these same opinions? And so we had lots of really good conversation after this. I've kind of lost my sheet here. Here we go. So in class, and I don't know where we're at on time,
We
actually.
have 6 minutes.
Good. I figured we would be behind by this point. So in class.
Actually, yeah, 6 minutes is okay. Sorry.
Okay. I was
Never
like,
mind, you're good.
Point. So in class, as a group, we discussed, how did these perspectives differ? Why did the perspectives differ? What disturbed, interested, or confused you? What new ideas do you have about the topic that you didn't have before? What new questions do you have? And we finally ended with, what do you think the battlefield should be called? Now, my class this year was just 100%, oh, it's called Where the Girl Saved Her Brother. That's the only option. Clearly, that's the name of it. So they definitely wanted to go out and make sure that nobody called it the Rosebud Battle. That is not correct. But I do appreciate, Shirley mentioned that too. I like the idea of allowing different opinions. I want to create a safe space to discuss all of these, even though we all did kind of come to the conclusion that it's the place where the girl saved her brother. So Martha, go ahead and wrap us up.
All right. So the next part of this lesson, if I can figure out how to share my screen again,
Woohoo.
Is simply then going back to the essential understanding. So this is the essential understanding that the lesson relates to. History is a story most often related through the subjective experience of the teller. With the inclusion of more and varied voices, histories are being rediscovered and revised. History told from American Indian perspectives frequently conflict with the stories mainstream historians tell. So that's pretty highfalutin language for a fourth grader. That's not easy. And with all of these essential understandings, we are ending every single one of these to say, let's do a close reading of this. Let's break this down. And so it's also a good ELA. Well, history is a story. Okay, do we understand that part? Most often related through the subjective experience. Well, wait a minute, what's subjective mean? And so then you have to talk about that, right? So talking about the words, talking about how they come together, and then we ask the students to come up with a summary in their own words of the essential understanding, work with a partner or a small group and come up with that summary. If we had time, I would have you all do that, but we don't.
So we can do it in the chat.
You can if you want to, but I'll just tell you that the summary, we also provide in the Footlocker our own summaries that we thought were kind of fourth grade appropriate. And the one that we came up with this one was, a person's point of view shapes the way they understand and explain history. Indian historians often see things differently than non-Indian historians. So that was the summary that we came up that kind of translated it. And then you ask, how does this, okay, this is what, and we always say, this is what, the tribe all sent representatives They all met and they all came up with these 7 things that they thought it was really important for every single Montanan to understand. And this is one of them. How did the lesson that we just completed, how does that relate to the thing that the tribes want everyone to understand? That history is a story most often, related through the subjective experience of the teller. And so we tie it all back, and that is for every single one of these lessons. I'll say that the Footlocker has in it, the first 2 lessons are associated. Ooh, that's weird.
Oh, it just paused there.
Are associated with essential understanding 1. Lesson 3 is looking at identity, essential understanding number 2, and that it's a continuum and not all individual Indians are the same. And it's comparing Superman, a video by music by Superman, with a traditional song sung by Shane Doyle, who's also Crow. The traditional knowledge is lesson 4, and that's looking at song, story, and art.
Yes, and that's the one with the science stories and the traditional stories and seeing where they convene.
Yeah, it uses the OPI, created these great lessons on astronomy, Crow astronomy and Blackfeet astronomy, and that's looking at that. Montana Tribes and Federal Indian Policy is the one that uses the artifacts to tell the story.
Yes, and my kids loved that one.
Having kids make a little museum of Federal Indian Policy using the artifacts in the Footlocker. And then we wrap it up with tribal seals. Oh, I forgot, the lesson 5 is Treaties, Reservations, and Sovereignty. And that is both a math lesson that looks at how much the shrinking reservation and how much Indian land was ceded. And then also looking at assertions of Indian sovereignty, particularly through bison restoration. And then you got these great little reading things that you can do even if you're just need some reading. There's these 8 different, and I don't know if you can see these because
it looks like it froze on my screen.
Sharing is paused.
Oh,
you shared.
Resume share.
I don't know what I did. Okay, you're not seeing what you're supposed to see. What?
Anyway,
sorry. Y'all can go to the Footlocker.
Check it out.
You can see that there are amazing Montanan biographies from each of the tribal nations, not each tribe. We only did 8, so but each reservation plus each of the reservations plus Little Show that are people of all sorts of types, nurses and curators and politicians and native language champions and the like.
Yeah.
So that's the fast wrap up.
Woohoo!
I don't know if there's time for questions, Sage, or if we just need to call it.
Yeah, so it looks like we got to give everybody a couple minutes to hop over to the next session 1, and I can drop the link in the chat for that session. Thank you so much for being here. I truly learned so much, and I'm pretty sure everybody else did as well. This is such an amazing resource, and I hope that these educators will be accessing it in the future.
Great.
All right. Thank you so much.
Yes.